Hello everyone, Forest Focus as Nottingham Forest returns Premier League action against Fulham on Saturday. We will preview that game in full and discuss the other news of the day in the company of, first of all, Pete Blackburn. Afternoon, Pete. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Good. How many times have you been on this week? Two?
Only once, I think.
Okay. Just enjoy your company that much.
Yeah.
Greg Mitchell, hello. How are you?
Yeah, not. I was just thinking how many times you've been on this week to Pete. It was like teacher's pet. So yeah, good. Bit of a shambolic start. I'm glad we finally got going, but yeah.
Okay, not a shambolic start when the school rings and said, your son's been sick, you've got to go and pick him up. I mean, like I said, I could have left him there. So there you go. Why are you looking so small as well, Greg? You look like you're framed like
I am only 5'8", but maybe my seat needs to come up.
Maybe you need to get him a booster seat on expenses, mate.
Oh, yeah, do it. Paul Morley, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yes, very, very good.
Good.
I won't take up any time with any jinx on me. We're already 15 minutes late, so
we're 5 minutes late. Good to have you with us for an afternoon podcast anyway, Paul, as you join us today. Right, let's start with the Fulham game. Greg, you want to kick us off? How are you feeling about this one?
It'll be good to get back to league football after what happened, obviously, on whenever it was, Tuesday. Get those starters back in the team, which we clearly need, and hopefully get something. It could be a big day, doesn't it? It feels like it's the start of the running already. You look at the fixtures list, and there's not that many games left. So it's getting exciting now. It's the business end, or the championship rounds, as you'd call it in other sports, and it starts on Saturday.
I just realised I failed you straight away there, because I said, are we going to talk about Sam Perkins at the start or the end? You said the start. I got thrown by your diminutive dwarf frame and then totally forgot about it. You want to talk about Sam now?
I'm glad you did that, to be honest. It probably worked well. Just thank everyone. It's been such an emotional week, and I went to see him on Thursday, and we had such a brilliant catch up and chat about all things Forest and just everything. And I don't know, you've all seen the news now, and he's just the most wonderful person. And the way everyone, the Forest community, have supported his friends and family over the last few days, I just know he'd be so proud, and we're not going to stop fighting for what he wanted. Hopefully going to honour him in a upcoming home game, which I'm sure everyone who knew him and everyone who had read about him or watched his stories would want to get behind. So just thank you, really. I went to visit Emma, his wife, yesterday, and she was just obviously incredibly emotional, incredibly proud of what he'd managed to do and how he'd managed to fight, and how he'd managed to see this great football club go from probably the highest position we've seen in many years. So it's just been emotional. It's been a really sad time, but I'm just so proud of him, just so proud of what he's managed to do and what he's continuing to do for the fight, because that was what was keeping him going, this fight to find a cure against MND. And we've got like the Just Giving page and stuff, which I'm sure we'll throw out at the end, that people have been donating to. But just thank you, really. And I'm not going to cry.
I'll put the link for Just Giving in the description after this, and I will publicise it on Twitter as well. So well done, Greg. You handled that much more professionally than I did, because I
thank you. Well, I had 20 minutes to think about it whilst I was waiting for you. So I think I've broke my seat as well. I think that's what it is. So this expenses claim might be coming in.
That's what it is. Not that you're tiny. No, that's okay. Right, we'll revert back to that. But like I say, well said, Greg, and we'll put the link for Just Giving in the description, and we'll publicise it on Twitter and all other platforms as well. Back to the Fulham game then. Paul, how are you feeling? Are you nervous for it? I know we just beat Brighton 7-0, but you don't know with football because we got taken as penalties by Exeter. So how are you feeling?
I'm excited by it. Yeah, I'm going actually. So I'm looking forward to avenging the memory of the 5-0 that I was also there for last season before Cooper departed. So yeah, no, I'm feeling positive about it. I think Fulham, particularly their home form's quite patchy. I think they've only won one of their last 7 at home, and that was against Brighton. And they've lost against Wolves. They've lost against Man United, didn't they, last time out at home, and they've drawn a few. So yeah, we can definitely. It's definitely a fixture that I think we can get something from, and like I say, looking forward to it.
I have recorded the opposition preview with Russ Goldman from Cottage Talk. If you remember him, the American correspondent, nice guy, and he was saying their struggles are against bottom half teams, basically, who they can't break down, teams that sit in. So again, that kind of suits the narrative, which you can always spin. How are you feeling about the game and them as opponents, Pete?
Pretty good. I can't believe it when Paul just mentioned that 5-0 drubbing and refers to it as being last season. That just seems absolutely crazy. I sort of can't really believe that that's not a decade ago now. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like when you send your little notes around before, I say little, sorry, I didn't mean to be patronising.
Little notes.
When you send your notes around before we do one of the pods, you always say, what are your general thoughts on the game? And all I can really think for each of these games now is just that it's sort of exciting and fascinating just to see what happens next on this Mars journey, because watching all the success play out is just really hard to get your head around, obviously. I'm just really always very excited to see what this group of players are going to come up with in the next one. To answer your question more directly, I do feel like it's a decent matchup for us, and that gives me hope that we can go there and get a result. I think despite league position, I think we can frame it as the pressure being slightly more on them than us if we want to, that they need results if their season is going to be more than another good mid-table finish. They're obviously the home side, and I think a draw looks like a pretty decent point for us and doesn't really help them an awful lot. So I think things are on our side. I mean, I think, like you say, they're a team that are going to look to try and dominate the game. They have more possession in most games than the opposition do, and it's all going to suit us. I don't think they're relentlessly dynamic and going to press us really hard, but they're going to look to have the ball, and I think they'll leave moments for us. So I think it's an opportunity for another point or three, all being well.
Any worries, Greg, about extra time on Tuesday? Obviously, fans got back about 4:30 in the morning. I don't know if the players stayed over or what. But any worries it's going to be a factor going that deep into the night?
No, because I think the players that got the extra minutes in kind of needed them, and then obviously Nico only came on for the last bit, so he gets his legs fresh. No, I don't think so, and it gave valuable minutes to bench players, which is key for us because the bench hasn't made the impact that it had been doing in recent months. Recently, no, I think it's a positive. I think we've had a real test as well. You've got to give Exeter so much credit for how they played, and you know, the big negative is obviously Taiwo, because Taiwo was just looking like the old Taiwo, especially with that goal. So with him possibly being out for a short while, is it a broken nose he's got?
Yeah, I've got a bit of a fitness thing here. Nuno did his press earlier, so there's a bit of an update just saying Nuno said today Taiwo broke his nose. We're waiting for the right concussion protocols to be followed, so we need to be careful. It'll take 2 or 3 days to settle down, see if he's okay. So he's not going to play in this game and the next one, I'd imagine, and maybe the one after that. So we'll wait and see. On Hudson-Odoi, he's trained. He said he's joined in parts of training today and yesterday, and he says, I'm positive. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's available for at least the bench. And Murillo is fine, said he trained. He had a dead leg, didn't he? But he just wasn't risked against Exeter. So, yeah, that's how we're set up. I don't think Taiwo could be on the bench, as Derek says, there because of a concussion. If he's got a concussion, he definitely won't be. So, yeah, that's how we're set up.
Yeah, the key players are there then, aren't they? You know, we're not any weaker than we were against Brighton. Let's say that's the key. And some bench players have had game time now, because you're going to get players like Sousa who are going to have to be featuring. If Taiwo's not on that bench, he's going to have to be coming on, because the options are very limited, aren't they, in attacking areas. So yeah, there's some decisions to make, and it's certainly next man up is going to be a big thing over the next few games.
Yeah, I see Martin's answered James's question in the chat about Matt Aldridge's book. What's it called? Trailblazers? What's it called, Greg? You remember the full title?
Trailblazers, yeah, but you don't ask me the whole. It's like the unique something. I'm going to have to Google it.
You had 4 or 5 copies behind you last time we did this. Where are they?
Yeah, what's going on?
Black marketed all them, didn't they?
Fair enough.
It's called Trailblazers. Google Trailblazers. Stitch him right up.
Sorry, I didn't know about that. Just before we get into our lineups, Paul, I don't know how much you've seen of Fulham. It seems to me like a lot of their attack comes down the left. Anthony Robinson, Alex Iwobi are probably their key men. They've got good players. They don't really have any mega star players. So where do you think this game's going to be won and lost for us?
Well, yeah, I mean, they've definitely got, particularly going forward, they've got, attacking threat. I think looking at their last few selections, they've been pretty consistent in selection and formation. They tend to play 4-2-3-1, pretty much the same personnel. So I think we kind of know we should be. It's one of those games where Nuno can probably plan quite confidently as to what we're going to come up against. And as you say, attacking threat down the left-hand side. I think that'll be a really interesting matchup. Sort of Robinson up against Inet, particularly if we do go with the back three. I know we'll come to lineups in a minute, but if Aiden is playing as a wing back, that'll be an interesting sort of duel on that side of the pitch, and probably whoever gets the better of that head-to-head sort of duel is going to be on the front foot for in terms of the moments in the game that are going to create sort of goal scoring chances. So nothing to fear. I think in terms of motivation from the guys, I think just Nuno's got to put up Tom Kearney's was it Monday Night Football sort of summary that when he talked about Forest, that being motivation enough to stick that on for 10 minutes in the dressing room before they go out, and I'm sure that'll pump them up to prove a point.
What did he say? They'll hit a brick wall or something?
Yeah, just it won't last, and this possession, low possessions, you can't be successful with it over a long period of time, etc. So be good to ram that down his throat.
That was the one. Just before we come to lineups, Pete, any players that of theirs that worry you? They've got quite a lot of injuries. I think Adama Traore is predicted to play on the right wing, and he's very unpredictable, having been predicted. But any players that would potentially trouble us in your mind?
I think Paul's already nailed that. The key men form-wise this season are clearly Iwobi and Robinson on that left-hand side. I think what I admire about Fulham really is that they're a team, aren't they? I think we've got a lot of respect for that. They do have talented players across the pitch, and I don't mean to diminish that at all. I think they have players in pretty much every position that I'd be very happy with in our squad and such like. But they're not big stars. They're not sort of big striking names. I think Fulham are the result of genuine stability, which is pretty rare in football at the moment, particularly at this level. Clearly good coaching and a pretty well-run club, certainly on the pitch side of things. So no, I don't have massive worries about the players. I think Paul's absolutely bang on about that left-hand side for them being crucial to how the game plays out. It does give me slight concerns about the system and whether, if we've got a Morata out on that side, if they could be isolated and such like. But I'm sure Nuno's got a plan for that. I mean, when I look at Fulham, I just, as I sort of touched on at the start, I just feel like it's a decent match for us. As I said, I think they're 8th in the table for possession, and you'd expect that to be heightened somewhat against us at home. We're not going to be interested in making any inroads to that. I think they average sort of 52 or 53% possession normally. So you'd expect them to have 60 or even more in this game. And we know that how this works, isn't it? It's well trodden for us. We just have to keep that defensive solidity, organise really well, and when we counter it with great ruthless efficiency, and that's what we've been good at. It'll be interesting to see whether Hudson-Odoi makes it or not, because clearly that changes things and makes us a bit more of a threat in that sense. Otherwise, I think the concern from them is that it's quite a different style to what we generally face, and then they're top of the league for crosses and top of the league for accurate crosses. But I think that stuff suits us, doesn't it? We've got players in fullback areas that we know can do a job. They've shackled really impressive wingers this season, and you fancy Milenkovic to head away anything he needs to. And Murillo's actually much improved in that department as well in terms of competing. So if we're at our best, which granted is an ask, you've got to do that. If we're at our best, I fancy us. Again, if we're not at our best, then I think we could be overturned. And I guess that's the Premier League, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Right, we'll get into our lineups shortly. Just pull out a word called Trent Navigation. Loads of events coming up. including Urban Intro, 25th of April, not January, 25th of April, Funk and Soul Cookout. General admission is £22. Search gigantic.com for your tickets or just scan the QR code on your screen. It includes admission to the Big Shed reserve seating and food from the Soul Food Court and the Big Shed Pizza Kitchen. And it's with DJ Jeremy Prince. Loads of events coming up. We'll keep you up to date with those as we go along. Let's start with our lineups then. Should we start with yours? Should we start with yours, Greg?
I'm just trying to find the bit where you asked me to send you a lineup. I can't see
it's in the little notes I sent out before we started.
Well, all I read was about that woman's name I had to Google, but no, it's...
oh, come on, you've already Googled that name, I'm sure, and we'll get to it later.
So apologies.
Apology accepted. Right, no lineup from Greg, but I'll ask him his thoughts.
It wouldn't be a Thursday if there wasn't a row between you two about you two.
Okay, we'll start with mine and Pete's because I think they're basically the same. Then we'll come to Paul and then we'll get Greg's verdict. Right, this is a team assuming that Callum Hudson-Odoi is fit. This is my team. I think Pete's is the same. I'll just read it out. Sells in goal, Morato, Milenkovic and Murillo at the back. Oleraina, Morgan Gibbs-White and Ellie Anderson in midfield with Nico Williams as the other wing back. And then Elanga and Hudson-Odoi in support of Chris Wood. So lots of different ways you can mould that formation, but that's kind of the basics of it. Is that what you're thinking, Pete, if Hudson-Odoi is fit?
I think so. I mean, if my instinct until we started talking about it was that I'd just go for the same lineup as Brighton. But I do think that if Hudson-Odoi is fit, there's sort of an onus on us now to put out the best team that we can and really take the game to the opposition. And clearly that doesn't mean that we're going to be looking to dominate and what have you, but that we're going to have the lineup out there that can really capitalise in the moments we need them to. And we have seen in recent weeks that Hudson-Odoi and Elanga can be trusted to do those jobs and help mitigate the fact that we're losing a central midfielder from that Brighton game. I wouldn't be disappointed if it was this, and I wouldn't be disappointed if it was a carbon copy of the Brighton lineup. I think I'd like to see Danilo in there again, but it's a nice problem to have, isn't it? That there's more than 11 players that I want to be in the team at this moment. And obviously you can't fit them all in without losing one of the centre halves or losing Hudson-Odoi or Elanga. So I think I'd go with this. It looks really strong to me. I think we've seen that Anderson and Gibbs-White can perform those roles, and I think that's really the big question about the lineup is whether you can have two pretty attack-minded players in that system and trust them to do it. But those guys are both absolute freaks in the best possible way, aren't they? You know, they are unbelievable attacking weapons, but they're also outrageous athletes, and they come with this incredible mentality and desire to do the work needed. And I'm not desperately scared of what Fulham have to offer in those central areas. I think Berger and Lukic a good central midfield partnership, and I'm guessing it's going to be Smith Rowe in the 10. But it doesn't strike me as the sort of area the sort of list of players that's going to overwhelm us, and that's been a problem for us in games like Newcastle and such like, where they've had a lot of players through the middle and dominating and very athletic. But it looks to me like that matchup's going to be fine. So if Hudson-Odoi is available, I take him into the game and look to see if we can get ahead, because we know that if we can get ahead, we can stay ahead. But I wouldn't be disappointed if it's Danilo.
That is a very strong attacking lineup. We'll pick up on that in a sec. Thank you, Peter, for reminding people. If you're joining us live, do hit like, do hit subscribe. Be very much appreciated. Like I say, I know it's three at the back, but I think that's a really attacking lineup with that midfield. We've discussed Danilo. You took some heat for your Sangare comments yesterday. Any temptation to bring Sangare in at all or not?
No, I wouldn't start him for this. I'm not really sure why I took some heat for the Sangare comments, because I didn't say anything remotely critical about him. But you know, people will respond to what they want to hear sometimes. I like Sangare as a footballer. I really wanted him to come to the football club, and I really hope it works out for him. But I think it would be a big ask to throw him into a massive, intense Premier League game with the amount of minutes that he's had. And particularly, I didn't see anything against Exeter that I thought gave us strong evidence that he was suddenly going to be able to thrive. I think he's going to need time to work on the physical side of things. And we didn't have that tested whatsoever against Exeter, because he was just standing on his own in the middle of the pitch, having a great time. And he did a really good job of it, didn't he? Because he picked them apart on a couple of occasions, and we wouldn't have been in the game had he not done that. So, look, I think it was a good performance, and he did really well. But I just didn't think it gave us any evidence that he could overcome the difficulties that he's had so far in his Forest career. And I'm not sure that he can leapfrog Danilo into that role. And we know that Danilo can do that job of progressing the ball from deep and picking those passes like Sangare did. But we've also seen that he can compete at the level, and we saw against Brighton that he was ready to play. Although, admittedly, again, Brighton didn't give him an awful lot of trouble in that area as well, surrounding the midfield. So, look, I think Sangare's got a couple of players to jump ahead of at the moment, but that's not a criticism of him. He just needs time to keep getting back up to speed, and I certainly hope that he can, because he could have a big impact for us if he's able to get there.
People liking that lineup. Stephen likes it. Ollie likes it, and I agree with what he says. Ollie says about Gibbs, White, and Anderson more than capable of doing defensive work, especially against Fulham's midfield, which I think, like Pete said, I don't think Smith Rowe does the game going the other way particularly well without the ball. And the other two, Lukic and Sander Berge, are good players, but I would back R2 against them, certainly. Let's look at Paul's team, which is pretty similar, obviously, because we won the last game 7-0. In fact, it is that team that we won 7-0 against Brighton. So, Sells in goal, Milenkovic, Murillo, Morato, Oleraina, Danilo, Anderson, Williams, and then Gibbs White and Elanga in support of Chris Wood. So, talk us through your thinking, Paul.
Yeah, just thought, I guess maybe a bit of a traditional old school, don't change your winning team, particularly when this one's 7-0. But like Pete said, I think it's pretty much 11 from 12, isn't it? And Danilo and Callum are the sort of the either or flip toss of a coin selections. I just think, given how well we played with this 11, I just think there's not a necessity to rush Callum back. And obviously, if he's absolutely 100%, then I would be. Have absolutely no problem at all if the lineup that Pete just talked us through is what starts. I just think we don't have to rush. He's such an important player, Callum, and hopefully will be for the rest of the season. That I just want to make sure we don't rush him back a little bit too quickly. Hopefully he'll be on the bench and he can come on and give 25-30 minutes towards the end. But yeah, I just think, given the performance against Brighton, I'd be keen to see that starting template again and mould as we go on, and maybe Callum has an impact if the game is tight. It feels like it's going to be one of those tight games that we've talked a lot about earlier in the season about shortening the games and making it into a 25-30 minute game towards the end, and that's where potentially someone like Callum could come on if it's tight to give us that extra impetus for to get us over the line in the closing stages.
Are you picking three at the back because Morato was rested on Tuesday, and that's all indications where it's three at the back, or would you have done that anyway?
I think, certainly given the team sheet on Tuesday, that was almost a Nuno showing his hand for Saturday with Morato likely to come in. I think, again, just based on the fact that, for the two reasons I said before, that we know we've got a formula without Callum that works really well. Given the result against Brighton, and just as I say, from a continuity perspective, to win 7-0, those players are going to be absolutely full of confidence given what they produced a fortnight ago when they were out on the pitch against Brighton. So no reason to make a change in formation, I don't think, after such a good performance.
What about you then, Greg? What kind of team would you want? Would it be either of those or anything different?
I love them both. I suspect it'll be Paul's. I just don't think Hudson-Odoi will start, although he was training out in Dubai, wasn't he? And everything seemed positive that sense, but they just both look such strong lineups. So maybe it's where you position the players on Pete's lineup, but on Pete's it looks like that's a clean sheet with such an attacking threat, doesn't it? What Hudson-Odoi brings is just something else. But Danilo, fantastic player. He's really shown what he can do in the minutes he's had so far, but I don't think he's got 90 minutes in him as of yet. So if Hudson-Odoi is fit enough for the bench, it might be a nice little swap around that those two do. It could work favourably, but I do think three at the back is the right thing to do. Someone said in the comments, Fulham haven't won at home since December the 5th, so keep it really tight, pressure them when we can, and use our fantastic counter-attacking ability to get the one or two goals we'll need.
Martin asks about the back three and the positions of them. I think Morato played on the right against Brighton. That's why I did it. And then with Paul's team, I think I just stuck it down without thinking about it. Unless Paul's got some reasoning.
Not especially. I was half thinking about obviously that attacking threat down the left that we talked about before, and just I guess Milenkovic being a right footer, if they're coming down that side, he can keep them on the outside rather than allow them to cut in. So yeah, not any huge science behind it. And if it was flipped around and Morato was on the right, Milenkovic in the centre, Murillo left, I'm comfortable either way.
Just in terms of results, before we move on from the game, then, I mean, obviously, we wouldn't take a point. We'd go there to win. But with Newcastle, Arsenal, City coming up, is a point, a disaster or not, Pete? How would you view it?
Right. I'm going to do something a little bit self-indulgent, but can I ask you to clarify what that question actually means, right? Because last home game, I forget what the home game was, there was a big debate between me and all my pals about it. Because my understanding of that question is that you're saying, if I give you a point now and the game doesn't happen, will you take that away? Is that what the question is?
No.
That's how I take it.
There's disagreement on the panel. What does it mean?
Okay. I'm saying if we leave the game with a point, you don't know the context, but is a point a terrible result?
No, a point's definitely a good result, but I wouldn't take it now because I'd be optimistic of the chances of us getting more. But no, a point's definitely a good result.
That question has always been: would you take a point now or give you a point, or is it a gamble and you might
will give you three? That was when we were rubbish in the Premier League. We're not rubbish.
I don't think it makes sense as a question unless it's what Greg just said, because otherwise
he's getting attacked at all angles.
No, I agree with you. You're right.
Oh no, I'm on about that is.
I think it's in the context of the upcoming fixtures is why I'm asking it more so, because we've got Newcastle, City, and Arsenal next. So that's why I'm thinking.
It's a difficult run, isn't it? But to channel Elliot, who often watches the pod and engages with us, there is just no rhyme or reason to how we get results in the Premier League, is there? I don't think.
But then you look at where we got all our points this season. About 85% of them are against the bottom half of the table because they're the worst teams. That's why.
Right, yeah, but I think that potentially says more about the way that the teams play than perhaps the actual fixture themselves. I mean, there is a lot of context to that if you look into it. But look, I just think that we've seen a lot of famous moments from this Forest team, haven't we? And I don't have any sort of belief that we can't win those games against City or whatever. I think this Forest team is made to go out and make those special moments. So I'm not desperately worried if we don't get anything from this game that means we're not going to get anything from the next four or whatever. I'd have faith in them to come good.
I think you saw from last night's game, didn't you? The different emotions.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm walking out of there at 5 o'clock on Saturday with a point, I think I would be content. If it's my current sort of, I wouldn't say I'll be ecstatic. I wouldn't be disappointed. I'll be content. If it's the 90th minute equaliser, then I will be pretty cock a hoop. And if it's a 90th minute, chucking away of 2 points, then I'll be disappointed. And as I say, last night kind of encapsulated that, didn't it, with the Merseyside derby? So,
can I give you a perfect example of that? When we famously drew against Man City and they played the celebratory music at the end of the game, and it was incredible. And I think the next week we played Everton at home, didn't we? And drew. And we walked out of there like so heads down and just awful. Same amount of points, but that's why football's incredible. And everyone moaning about the scenes last night, and it was just brilliant. It was so good to see. That is what football is, and the Premier League has become such a diluted thing in the recent years, and it's just brilliant to see that kind of passion spill out. And I loved it. Loved hearing the Liverpool fans moan as well. Fantastic.
Does anyone think Liverpool are going to wobble and boss it? I don't at all.
They are wobbling. I think they already are wobbling. They're out of cups. They're just. I mean, look, you've lost to Plymouth away. You don't do that as this unbeatable team that's going to win a quadruple.
That was their reserves thing.
They're wobbling already. They wobbled last night.
I'm going to look at their I'll look at their wobbling results. Go on, Pete. Sorry.
It feels like the key thing about the Liverpool wobble chat is really whether it even matters if they do, because what is the threat likely to be? You can't. I mean, as brilliant as Forest have been, you can't realistically see Forest putting the sort of run together that would mean that we'd overturn Liverpool, even if they had a bit of a wobble, which would presumably mean losing a couple of games in a row or something. And as we've sort of seen with the news recently around injuries and such like, the other competitors are looking pretty weak as well. So I just, even if they do have a wobble, I don't see it being a desperately concerning one for them.
What I do think about Liverpool is this is their absolute golden era. This is their year where every single player is at their peak. Your Salahs are probably going to go. They're going to be a weakened side, and what's his name? Klopp basically left this team as good as it's ever going to be. And if they only walk away this season with one trophy, I don't think that's a successful season for them with what they've got and how weak their opposition has been. So
we'll come on to that. They have won their previous 3 Premier League games before this one, and then it was us they drew with. So yeah, I think they'll win the league by probably about 8 or 9 points still. But second field up for grabs. Leading into what Pete was saying there, Kai Havertz out for the season. Nicholas Jackson, Chelsea strikers, out for 4 or 5 games maybe. Teams are looking slightly wobbly, and obviously City are probably going out of the Champions League, which isn't a good thing for us, really. But it's probably an opportune time for us if we can string a few more results together.
Yeah, it's coming into that time of the season. It happens always, doesn't it? When you get into the as Greg said earlier on, sort of that come around that home stretch, and injuries and suspensions start to really kind of kick in, and touch wood, we've been very fortunate so far on that front, apart from obviously Danilo and Sangare, but we obviously had the depth there to compensate for that. So I mean, as someone just said in the comments, maybe it's a good time to play some of these teams like Man City and Arsenal in particular. I think Arsenal have got just 3 fit front players. I think Sterling, Trossard, and Nwaneri there are only 3 fit ones at the moment. Whether that'll be different by the time we come to play them in a couple of weeks' time, whether Saka will be back, and even if he is, you would think he's going to be not fully up to speed. So that's definitely an opportunity when we play Arsenal. And just whilst ever we got our own players fit, we just got to make the most of that, because we may get into a period in the weeks and months ahead where that isn't always the case. But I think I've said before, I think midfield wise particularly, we're in good shape. We've got good depth. So we all know that the forward line is maybe a bit. It's where the challenge would be if we were to get a Havertz / Jackson-esque injury to Wood, then the complexion would look quite different. So, but let's hope that doesn't happen, and like you say, make the most of it whilst we've got our fit players available.
Very good, very good. Let's just take a word before we move on for home move estate agents. If I can find the slide, which I can't. Bear with me. There we go. just let Pete laugh at me. If you're looking to buy or sell, or you're struggling to sell, get in touch with Ben Sales. Links in the description. Thanks very much to Ben for his sponsorship. I know he's particularly looking around Bridgeford and a couple of areas around that for houses at the moment. So get in touch with Ben. They are, of course, 5-star rated on Google. Right, talking of Google, there's a story around Forest shirt sponsors. It was on a BBC story about internet personality Bonnie Blue, shall we say. Google her carefully, and her relationship with Stake, who are Everton's shirt sponsors, attracted some attention. They're not registered in the UK, and according to this report, neither is our shirt sponsor, Kayun, the betting company. It says that the Gambling Commission has written to Forest about this, and Leicester City as well. The shirt sponsorship deal ends this summer. So if we get into Europe, Greg, the question away from Bonnie Blue is, would we hope that we get a more, I don't know if the word's reputable. Well, it is the word reputable, I think. Or would we get a different shirt sponsor that brings in more money and probably more positive attention?
Yes, undoubtedly. We tried it when we first got promoted. We wanted 10 million, didn't we, for a shirt sponsor? We didn't get it. So you put UNICEF on the front, which was incredible. Since then, obviously, the sponsors haven't been that desirable, or, don't really understand them. So no better chance than a team that gets into Europe for the first time in many years. There's going to be a lot of cameras on them. So you'd expect we'd get that £10 million and that sponsor that we've all heard heard of and hopefully can be proud of, because it's an important part of the shirt. It has been for decades, hasn't it? You think of the famous sponsors that we've had that we still connect with. I mean, I've got blooming Shipston's top on now. You remember them, don't you? It's your clubs almost. So that's how important it can be. You'd think they've already got teams and marketing teams looking at this and saying the potential of Nottingham Forest and where we're expecting to go over the next 5 years. So I'd be astounded if we don't get our biggest ever shirt sponsorship deal in the summer. Absolutely astounded, because we are certainly a catch and we've certainly got many, many eyes on us over the world. So it would be a great thing for a potential sponsor to be partners with.
The gambling companies aren't supposed to be front of shirt sponsors anyway from next season, but you can still have gambling adverts, around the ground and on shirts in other places. But I suppose, Pete, branching out, if we do get into Europe, it opens up a lot of commercial opportunities, certainly, to increase the revenue, which is a big thing with PSR. So any thoughts on that? And if you want to weigh in on gambling shirt sponsorship as well, then feel free.
Yeah, I think there are layers to this. I mean, I'm pretty uncomfortable about our relationship with these sorts of firms in the gambling and I guess gambling adjacent space anyway. We've seen the hurt that can be caused through gambling and the collapse of companies like Football Index and all that sort of stuff. I just don't think it tallies well with the owners' efforts in other areas. They've done so much partnering with food banks and the sponsorship of the United Nations Refugee Agency, as Greg mentioned, and all the support, the money being pumped into Forest and the community and all that sort of stuff. I think we have to be careful what we say about the current sponsor, because it's not an area of personal expertise, and I don't want either myself or the podcast to be litigated against. But I think we know that
what we said so far, because I did change the subject if we weren't.
Yeah, we know that they aren't licensed to trade in this country, and beyond that, there are some pretty good investigations out there by the likes of Philippe Auclair and Josimar Football available online, which will explain to anyone who's interested the reasons why this is not a relationship which reflects well on Nottingham Forest. Ethically, I think it's problematic. Reputationally, I think it's problematic. And why? It's for all the difference of a couple of £1 million a year, because these companies are the best paying in the market out there right now. But you are talking about pretty minor differences in the grand scheme of things. So look, I hope that the changes in sponsorship regulations and this intervention mean that clubs like ours, and particularly ours, don't do this anymore. It doesn't reflect well on us, and we're doing so much else so well right now that we could do without it, I think. And on the other point, yeah, look, Europe's obviously a massive opportunity. It's huge revenue from TV and such like, but it's also an absolute game changer for the commercial department. It's eyes on, isn't it? It's eyes on this football club around the world. And it will be a big opportunity if we do make it, for them to really start bridging the gap between all those other clubs that currently they produce so much more revenue than us that it's incredibly hard for us to compete. And it always will be, because of the size of the stadium and all that sort of stuff. Without major infrastructure changes, it's always going to be hard. But we can start chipping away with the sort of eyes on that we'll get from this sort of success. So fingers crossed, it's a nice bright future in that sense.
Thank you to people suggesting shirt sponsors in the chat. For Wise Refrigerators, if I'm sure they still exist. Ribena, I saw.
Ribena would be.
Do not put Ollie's up, the first one. He did that to get at me. Yeah.
I missed
the first one.
Skull. Wow. What's your favourite ever sponsor we've had? Obviously, it's Shipston's, but
it's
other
Shipston's,
than that,
yeah. Labatt's after that, I think.
Oh, so you just alcohol then? All right.
Well, it's just the era. It's our age, isn't it?
Home ales as well to complete the bill.
Just on there, you mentioned I did some due diligence and research when you sent round your chat list, and apparently Bonnie Blue's a big Forest fan.
Apparently so.
Apparently from Stapleford. Apparently, I was thinking when she's achieved all she wants to in her current career, you could invite her on, Matt, and she could be the sort of launch of her alter ego, Bonnie Red.
More the merrier. Just like she's sorry.
We should really move on. I would not know what to ask her. I could get away with.
Ask her for a story how she got into it.
What, football?
Who's your favourite player?
Right, let's move on. Find something quickly in my notes.
Talk
Little
about
notes.
questionable gambling.
Yeah, but yeah, back to questionable gambling ethics and shirt sponsors. One change to the board that's been noted down, Sokratis Komenakis, who I think owns a 20% stake in the club still, has been removed from the board. I really don't know much about why or anything, but there's some suggestion it's to do with European rules around clubs playing in the same competition and all that stuff. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the exact rules. I'm sure Forest will find a way to make sure we're in the Champions League next season, but even if Olympiacos sure are. But yeah, there's ways around all these rules, I'm sure, so I'm not worried about that. Semi-automated offsides will be in the FA Cup fifth round at all the grounds, so that would
Didn't know
improve.
that. Good.
You
Well,
don't read the notes, do you?
Was that in the notes?
No,
I
it
didn't see
wasn't.
that either.
Paul sent it to me after. I was just checking.
It's ridiculous. That Wood goal from the other week that took 5 minutes when the game's already over. It's instant, isn't it? It's going to be like goal line technology. And I know the margins are pathetic that it could be that far off and it's off, but at least we'll know for sure this time. So it'll get rid of all that nonsense and you'll be able to celebrate a goal like we used to celebrate them. And that's the biggest thing for me.
So there's a good chance we might get the very first automated offside goal within English football at Forest. Another one to add to the Trailblazers.
I don't watch Champions League football. Is it instantaneous then? With
Pretty much. And the replay is superb as well. I mean, they should put the replays on the screen straight away. It's like a digitalized replay where you get it quick.
Very good. Very good. Right. I think that covers all the bases I wanted to cover today. Let me just have a quick check. Yeah. Pete, anything you want to add before we go?
No, nothing from me. Thanks. It's been an enjoyable episode. It's probably slightly cantankerous from me, so sorry about that.
Someone said you got your what's the word for
cantankerous? It was a pub debate that got very lively, presumably because we'd had a few beers, and it doesn't really make sense to anyone who hasn't. But yeah, I wanted to know what the question actually meant.
I don't know.
That's just my diligence as a panelist, you see. I'm really
I don't know what half the questions mean. If people watching up, they'll notice that my questions start off over here, where it's going to be about something else. Then I'll meander a bit, and then I'll probably ask something else at the end, or just say, "Don't you agree?" So yeah,
we should start asking you more often what your question meant after you ask it.
Yeah, because I won't know.
Really
I'll have to make something up. Greg Mitchell, anything you want to add before we go?
No, I was just thinking more again about what I said about Sam at the start and just making sure that people know how good the club have been to him as well over the years. The current chairman, Nick Randall, Johnny Owen has been absolutely incredible and he's been a real close friend to Sam. And, you know, people will never know how much time privately some people at the club have spent with Sam when he couldn't make it to games. And I know how much that meant to him. Steve Cooper, again, privately became a friend and a real close person to Sam. And Nuno's been fantastic as well. And I think it just shows what this football club is to the community. And at times when you really need them, it's a real special place. So I know it's made, especially his dad, who's watched every game with Sam for many years, whether it's been next to his bed or luckily enough in the ground, it's meant so much to them. So if anyone does watch from the club, thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
I think people do, so I'm sure it will get back to them. I'm sure it will. Paul, I'm slightly scared to ask. Anything you want to add? No.
I think Sam is the right note to end the show on. And what I never met the guy, but inspirational chap clearly, and very proud to have donated towards the cause that he fought so bravely for. And yeah, just echo what Greg said. And if anybody can give some more towards it, then that would be I'm sure that'd be greatly received.
Yeah, I'm sure Pete echoes it as well. Right, we shall leave it there. If you have enjoyed this slightly weird episode, do us a favour, hit like, hit subscribe, do consider channel membership or Patreon, or just a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. We shall be back tomorrow, as mentioned, with the opposition preview and then post-match show on Saturday. Not sure who it's going to be, because literally everyone involved in this podcast is either going to the game, going out for some wife's friend's 40th birthday or some bullshit, Paul, and going to Texas.
Got both the game and the party.
No, we're going to Temps's birthday. Paul's going to something else.
It's my 40th on Saturday, so Forest better win, or so I'm going to get Mardy.
You're actually 40th.
Yeah, no.
Well,
Shocking.
happy birthday to Saturday.
I thought you're older than
Yeah.
that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, God.
Unbelievable.
How old does that make you if he's your son, Matt?
I know. I walked into that, didn't I? Yeah, so Chris Aylmer was definitely confirmed for Saturday, but like I say, everyone else is either at the game. Ryan, Chief's going on holiday, and then the rest of us are going to Temps's birthday party. So we'll work something out. It might just be me and Chris, but it'll be good. And then on Monday, we'll be back with a full breakdown as normal. Pete Blackburn, thank you, I think.
Yeah, I sort of echo the thank you, I think, sentiment.
Greg Mitchell, thank you, I think.
I'm charging overtime now. It's been going on a bit long, hasn't it?
45 minutes. That's
Well,
short for us.
I was here at 2 p.m. sharp waiting.
Well,
Oh,
then
that
that
is
means you didn't read my
brutal.
WhatsApps properly. So. Paul Morley, thank you, I think.
Thank you. Pleasure.
It mostly was. No, it was. I enjoyed it. Thanks very much, chaps. Thanks for everyone's company. If we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.